Okay, welcome everyone. This is the Park and Recreation Committee meeting of March 17, 2025. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. We'll do the roll call.
Amanda Cahill.
Larry Schultz.
Mary Larson.
Jacob Paul.
And Jenna Smith.
Okay, thanks everyone. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the prior regular meeting. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes that you were sent?
I motion to approve the committee meeting minutes from February 19th, 2025.
And I'll second that because I think we were two here. Any further discussion? Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the February 19th minutes as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Okay, next on the agenda is discussion on anybody has any petitions, proclamations, suggestions, or complaints from citizens, committee members, or staff?
No, I just noticed in the online brochure for summer that the Vic Rec baseball schedule was in there, and I hadn't ever seen it in there before. So I thought that was really fun that they had were included in the programming for.
Are you talking about the
summer brochure for
the VIX baseball?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also how all the park kind of shelters were featured. That was a nice addition because I know those are really actually desirable spaces for a lot of different community members that use them for different celebrations. So I thought that was nice to have them featured in there as well.
Okay, great. Other comments? Hearing none, staff?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things that either have happened or are coming up with the city. And so one thing I do want to draw everyone's attention to is Victoria Academy. So this is a program that gives a very interactive learning experience for the inner workings of the city. Anything from the Public Works Department to the water treatment plant, fire station, and several of our park facilities. This is open to the public. It is very informal. It goes through how each department operates and how initiatives and assessments are addressed. So anyone is welcome to register. Registration is being accepted online. This academy is held from 5:30 to 7:30 on Thursday evenings from April 10th to May 15th. Meals are provided, so if any of you or anybody who is listening is interested in participating, we encourage you to sign up. We do also have our superhero party that is coming up on Friday, April 25th. I do want to make note that this is a rescheduled date. It originally was scheduled for March, but due to some community conflicts, we moved it to have a better date for more people to be able to attend. And so registrations are being accepted online at this event. It's mostly geared towards the preschool ages, but all families are welcome, and this event will include bounce houses, obstacles, making capes, other activities, super fun. So hope people can join us at that. We also do want to just bring attention to something that recently happened, a sale of a property that has transpired recently. And so if you watch the city council meeting, you will know that it was approved to sell the Overlook or like the Tamarack properties, particularly the Overlook at Tamarack, to Carver County. And so this is a part of the ATP project. This area is still going to be a preserved land, but as we're looking into future developments and the road construction and things like that, part of this decision was made so that the Arboretum will incorporate the site into their property. It's still going to be accessible to the public. It's still land that is going to be preserved. So the entire purpose of the parcel has not changed, just who's going to be managing the location. And so this will allow for some improvement to the trail connection there. They're going to complete the Bavaria Trail East Corridor as a part of this. And this trail will then also connect to Highway 5. So there's some really great opportunities that are coming out of that. Does anyone have any questions about that before I move on? Awesome. And then the last one, and this is a new thing that I'm trying out. And so I've got something coming up. We'll be doing it next week, short notice, but we want to catch it before the season starts. I came up with like a Q&A session called my clever name is Serving Up Solutions. So it's a pickleball Q&A with me prior to the start of the season. And so essentially what this is, it's just an opportunity for anyone who participates in pickleball using our courts, things like that, to get some clarity on, maybe how we maintain things, how we determine when things are fixed, if there's suggestions from our main users on things that they're interested in doing, or if there's concerns about maintenance, things like that. This is a great opportunity for us to be able to address that prior to the season starting, and I want to make sure that the public is informed about kind of the why we do things, and then making sure people know who I am, that I can be a resource to them if they have any questions or concerns. And so I will be communicating this out. We've got I have made up some cute little flyers that will be available at the rec center and posted up near our pickleball courts, both inside and outside. So this is coming up next week as we anticipate that the pickleball season is coming soon with the hopeful weather that we've got going on, and hopefully it sticks around. But with that, that is all that I have.
Okay, thank you. We have no old business this evening, so we'll move on to the new business. And first on the agenda is review of the work plan that we discussed in last meeting. I guess this is the final version. We'll turn it over to Jenna to walk us through this.
Absolutely. So the last time that we met, we did already go over the work plan. And so hopefully these themes will not look unfamiliar. But I did take the feedback that was shared in the last one to incorporate this into the final draft that you will be seeing tonight. So in this draft, there's a little bit more quantifiable things, a little bit more dates narrowed down, and a proposed schedule as to how we're going to tackle some of these things. So as I move along, I am going to just go through the slides, but feel free to interject with any thoughts or comments as we move on. So first on, as a part of our work plan, we got to know who's working on it. So this is the full slate of our committee this year. And so I do want to make note that the committee is larger. Council did make the decision to direct staff to update the policy to incorporate 9 members onto this board. We had such a great turnout with our applicants this year that council made the decision to continue to increase this as Victoria is continuing to grow. More voices equals better representation from our community. So we do have an incumbent returning and 3 additional committee members that will be joining us this year, beginning April 1st. And then, so just kind of a recap, we do have guiding principles that are established by City Council and staff that are used as a framework for a lot of the things that we do. And so as we move along, these are some of the things that we want to keep in mind when we are making decisions as we move through our work plan this year. These are principles that are meant to kind of shape the direction in which we're going with the city. And so the first one is to develop a unique Victoria. And so with this one, Victoria is a beautiful place. I love telling people where I work because the first comment everyone always says is it's beautiful. And so that's something that we get the privilege of as a Parks and Recreation Committee, is to continue to enhance some of those features. But then especially within our park system, this is a place for us to be able to develop that community, enhance the natural areas, support year-round recreation, and ensure all of our visitors have opportunities to experience joy, wellness, different recreation opportunities, and part of this committee is helping to reimagine some of those spaces. The second one is to foster community partnerships. This is working with neighboring groups, could be neighboring schools like Holy Family, it could be our associations, things like that. It could be our Carver County partners or Three Rivers partners. and then also our resident volunteers. And so these are partnerships that we seek to develop, and especially engaging our residents as we work through some of these work plans this year. And the third one is embrace current infrastructure and amenities. So we do already have some really wonderful things that are going on in the city of Victoria. So we want to both maintain the things that we have and improve the things that are very important and considered as assets to our community members. So our trail network system is something that is very loved in this community, and so that's something we want to continually use. Open green spaces, those natural areas, the things that make Victoria very beautiful. And then using our park system facilities, the rentable areas that committee member Cahill had mentioned earlier, and then enhancing just access to our park system and creating plans for how we're going to continue to develop and maintain those things. And then so moving on to our work plan. This one is the guiding post that's going to steer us through this next year. And so just a little backstory, City Council had requested that each advisory committee adopt a work plan for the upcoming year. So this will be brought to City Council for them to formally adopt. And at our last meeting on February 19th, we had discussed and reviewed opportunities in this work plan. And a lot of the feedback that was put into the original proposal was based on both conversations that were had within this committee, feedback from the 2023 Park Survey, the 2024 Victoria Recreation Center Survey, as well as last year's committee work plan and some of the things that went into it. So moving on, any thoughts, questions, feedback before we dig into the different sections of the work plan? Awesome. All right, so the first area is public engagement for park projects. And so parks serve as an important community space for recreation and connection with nature. Engaging the community in upcoming park projects ensures these spaces reflect public desires and needs. And so focus area goals for this one is to review the proposed Parks and Recreation public engagement policy. I'm very happy to report you guys have already accomplished something off of your work plan, so woohoo. The next one is to participate in public engagement events to gather community feedback for new developments. The third goal is to review the survey results and public input for those new park developments. And then the final one is to make recommendations for park projects. The anticipated timeline for this one spans from spring to fall 2025. A major part of that, as we'll see in the next slide, is to encompass all the different elements of the scope of this focus area. And so in each of these slides, there will be a slide similar to this that outlines the goals, the outcomes, and the initiatives in the proposed timeline. The proposed timeline is flexible. As we all know, things come up, there might be developments that come up or potentially projects that take a little bit more of our time. And so this is the proposed timeline. However, we do know that some of these things may need to be flexible based on the priorities that this year comes. But for our first goal, the main outcome that we're looking to get is to recommend that policy to go to council. And so for that one, your feedback was taken into consideration and inputted into the new public policy. And so at an upcoming council meeting, that will go to council for their approval for formal adoption of that Parks and Recreation public engagement policy. The outcome for goal number 2 is to serve as community ambassadors during engagement events to encourage public participation and feedback. So for this one, there are a few different dates here that are already indicated. So at our May 19th, it is my intention for us to be able to go over a proposed park survey or park development survey. So that is something that I will be putting together to present to you guys for your feedback. And this survey will be used through all of our engagement events this summer. It'll be something that would be accessible online. And so your feedback is crucial to me to be able to incorporate that in to make sure that we're actually capturing all of the questions, thoughts, and concerns that we want to hear back from our residents as we are doing these engagement events. And then you will see on here there are 3 different events that we've got coming up. 2 of them are ones that are going to be occurring on site for future developments. And so these ones are a little bit bigger. There will be activities and events that will be going on while we are there. So it's kind of a little bit more of a community event where we're going to be providing entertainment. So it should be a fun way to get people to come out and enjoy, as well as a great opportunity to get feedback from, you know, all the generations from kids on up, because we want everyone to be engaged and we want to hear those voices. So those ones, the Huntersbrook location will be June 24th, and the Marsh Hollow location will be August 19th. And then in the middle of the summer, on July 2nd, we are doing a trail version. This one's a little bit more relaxed, as it'll be a little bit more of like a guided trail opportunity. But this one's kind of focusing more on those like non-traditional spaces, getting some feedback about trails, having a little bit more of a quiet conversation in that type of a setting at our Lions Park Nodeman Trail. So that'll happen there.
Just a question. So I did see these in the summer brochure online too. Is the summer brochure like expected to be in mailbox soon?
Yes.
Okay.
So it should be, it has already been sent to the printer. And so it's just a matter of getting it back from the printer / mailed out.
Okay, great.
It's in process. All right, and then goal number 3, the outcome for this one is to identify key points and areas of community interest expressed through those surveys and the public engagement event. So we'll be taking all the feedback that we do receive from all of these events this summer and kind of putting together some formal thoughts. And then the final goal will be to provide insights and feedback for staff to make recommendations for those proposed park projects, because the goal is to have those developments occur in 2026. And so by the end of the year, we need to be able to have our thoughts kind of formalized to be able to move forward with those. Any thoughts for this focus area?
Looks good.
Awesome. All right, so the next focus area that we've got is our non-traditional park spaces. And so we've talked about these before, and this was a part of the work plan last year. So it's a continuation of that with a little bit more emphasis on some of those non-traditional park spaces. And so beyond traditional parks, there are opportunities to leverage underutilized areas within the city's current park system to enhance the overall park experience. And so with these, I do have 3 goals identified. One is to identify the underutilized spaces in the park system. And so one, we need to know which areas we want to focus on, so kind of creating those priorities there. Exploring innovative ideas for increasing recreational opportunities within non-traditional park spaces and open green spaces. So this one will be an opportunity for us to dream big. And then the final one will be to review the city park and trail system overall. And then for the goals, outcomes, and initiatives on this one, the outcome for goal number 1 is to develop that priority list for enhancements. And so this will give us kind of a guiding post of like how we can budget for the future year, how we can make those modifications in order to help people utilize the spaces in a way that fits the needs and the desires of our community. For goal number 2, the outcome is to develop a list of recommendations for consideration for those park enhancements. Like I said, I want us to be able to dream in these spaces. Let's get creative. I would love to hear your feedback. If we know, maybe there was comments at some of our engagement events that people have shared, or ideas that you guys might have. This is an opportunity for us to brainstorm some of these amenities that could enhance these non-traditional spaces and these open green spaces. And then another part of this is to provide any feedback as it relates to the Downtown West development, and that one will be city council directed. And so we'll wait for them to request kind of our feedback, because this is an ongoing project, but want to make sure that that's captured in here, as that will also be one of those non-traditional park spaces. The outcome for goal number 3 is to develop a proposal for opportunities to enhance the park and trail system overall. And so this will be a review of amenities and features of current parks and trails. So it's an enhancement, not just of the non-traditional spaces, but kind of a bigger picture. And then reviewing the current trail gap priority list and making recommendations for updates and changes. So as I had mentioned with the Tamarack thing, there's movement there. There's some other things that we are making movement on. And then that trail priority list that we had updated last year that will be put online soon are things that we want to make sure that, is this still the priority list, and we'll continuously be checking that so we can budget for those as those opportunities come up. Any thoughts or questions on this one?
So you said just so we can find it, the Tamarack property update that you said it's in what council meeting minutes?
So the March 10th council meeting minutes is where you'll be able to find the information.
Yeah, I just would like to
Yeah,
familiarize myself. Okay.
All right, so our third focus area is on the Parks and Recreation Code ordinances. So over time, the use of public park and recreation spaces has evolved. And so reflecting our current demographic shifts, changing community needs, and new trends in outdoor activities. And so for this, the main goal first is to gain an understanding of what these ordinances are. So city staff are working to kind of get through those. So they will put together the ones that pertain to Parks and Recreation so that we can take a look at them. And so first order of that business will be understanding what those ordinances are. And then from there, the second goal is to identify areas where current ordinances may be outdated, need improvement, or are missing. And so this one we will focus more on in the fall and winter as time allows, so that gives staff the time to be able to work through that, as well as fits appropriately within our workload for this year. And so anticipated outcome for goal number one is to gain understanding of that current Parks and Recreation ordinances. So out of reviewing it, the hope is that we understand what we're looking at. So the second goal is to provide those recommendations for updated ordinances. So we'll evaluate the ones that need to be reviewed. And then this is also an opportunity for us to provide recommendations for revisions or potentially additions to the ordinances, or just additions for ordinances in general. Any thoughts on this one?
Have you gone through this process in past?
For park ordinances reviews?
Yeah.
I personally have gone through where we have reviewed specific ones. Having a big review like this one is a huge undertaking. So this is something that has been needed to be done for a little while. So I'm very grateful for the team that is doing the digging on getting this done. But this is something that as things evolve and change, like ordinances might not be applicable anymore, or potentially it's something where while it might be applicable, maybe it's not as clear as it could have been. And so these are things that we want to review from time to time to just have fresh eyes on it, because I know that there's like nuances in some of them that maybe how it's worded might be misconstrued as to the intention of it. And so over time, we want to make sure that our language and our understanding of the language matches up to the expectation.
And yeah, and so we'll see our portion under Park and Rec Committee, and it kind of sounds like other committees will see other ordinances that apply to them. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So like as a community member, we would also be on the lookout for like updates to like, I'm just saying it, zoning or something.
So Planning Commission might be reviewing some of these. And so if you're interested in that, feel free to do that. City Council will be addressing some of the ordinances. I don't have a specific timeline for when those are happening, but that's something that if that's something that you're interested in, they do pertain to all residents. So I would say being informed is crucial in that. So everybody does have access to seeing what is being discussed at those meetings on our public page. So if you go to victoriamn.gov and you you can find our ordinances listed on there, but then you can also check to the meeting schedule to see when people are talking about it.
Okay. Great.
Absolutely. All right, and then our fourth area here is one that we don't want to forget because things are ever changing in that area, is the Victoria Recreation Center. So the city's contract, as a reminder, we are partnering with the school district for the use of the recreation center, but that is set to end. That contract expires in 2032. And so as the city council prepares for the transition, they're going to be determining the facilities long-term needs and what that partnership looks like. And so for this one, some of the goals are to stay informed on the city council's vision and mission for the facility. And we did discuss at our last meeting kind of what that looks like. And that's just an ongoing thing, making sure that as they have council workshops, if they have discussions, if there's something brought to a meeting, just making sure we understand what their direction and initiatives are, as we are also making recommendations. And then the second goal is to promote public engagement efforts and evaluate feedback regarding facility and program needs. And so we have already done some pretty extensive stuff, but this is something that we want to keep as a work plan item because this is an ongoing topic that's going to keep evolving over time. So I would fully anticipate that this is going to be a work plan item that's going to continue on until we know the future. And so with this one, some of the specific goals that we anticipate for this year's work plan are to utilize guiding framework for evaluating feedback based on direction provided by City Council. So anytime we are asked to evaluate feedback, it's going to be based on the direction that City Council has set for us. And then an outcome for goal number 2 is to develop a priority list of key takeaways from public feedback. So if we do have more engagement efforts, if we hear word about the recreation center at some of our stuff this summer or any other opportunities that we might have coming forward, these are opportunities for us to be able to review and evaluate some of that as we move forward.
I know we reviewed the survey results a couple months ago and put together our kind of summary of them. Do you know if council has
They have
looked at that yet?
There was a council workshop that was anticipated to be scheduled in January, but unfortunately there was quite a few illnesses that had happened at that time, and so that had to get rescheduled. As of right now, the anticipated rescheduled date is in April, and so they will be reviewing all that information, and discussions from that will be happening. So that meeting workshop can be found on the city's meeting page. And so if you're interested in what that agenda looks like and the things that they're talking about there, that's where that can be found.
So then, do you anticipate any movement on any of those possible items after that workshop, or?
The tricky part is that we are still in contract with the school district until 2032. And so, there are different ways on how that can be handled, whether the school district terminates the contract early, or if we continue on until 2032, there's a possibility it could be renewed. That future is really uncertain, so it's really hard to say at this point how.
Oh, yeah, I was just curious about maybe some of the, I know they're not quick fixes, but I will use that term, like some of the maybe asks that the community had in that feedback that could be potentially addressed that aren't huge maintenance and reshifting of the facility.
Yeah, so some of those, if it's something that is within the confines of what we can do in the space right now, that is stuff that will also be talked about at this council workshop. And so we'll get a little bit more direction as where do they want us to go? Because I know part of our conversation last year was also, are we a rec center or are we a community center? And from that, this committee had said, I think we're a community center. And so that proposal is being brought to City Council as well to, make that determination, and that will shape some of how we address the amenities and the use of spaces. And so some of those thoughts are being shared. So, we do operate, half of that facility, and so some of that is what can we do in our current infrastructure, in our current system, in our current model, and so some of those things will happen, but what those will be is determined.
Okay.
Not directly related to the goals here, but just a question. Is there a study being done or planned to be done by the city to evaluate the building itself? And what I'm getting at is, as the community gets closer and the council gets closer to deciding, what's going to be there in the future, it might be helpful to know that, the useful life of the air handling system is 2 years, or it's 20 years, or, the infrastructure type things. And there's, companies that do that, come in and do that evaluation, and that might help inform the council and us as to what some of the things are, because sometimes it's cheaper to start over than to try to remodel pieces of it, or just to know what that is, so we don't end up with some new things in the building and then find out, oops, now we got $2 million we need to increased air handling, or the furnace is about ready to go out or needs to be replaced. I know some of that's probably ongoing maintenance type things, but it might be helpful for people to know when they're making decisions.
Yes, so that is all information that staff do handle as an ongoing basis. So we do with any of the equipment that we have, we know what the lifespan is, we know things like that. So that's information and data that can be pulled together. And then in terms of like infrastructure and replacement, a lot of these things do have lifespans. Staff are aware of some of the things that need to be replaced and improved. And so these will be a part of those conversations. And we'll be able to kind of formalize some of those thoughts as the full discussions are happening. And we do run reports to see utilization of spaces, what are opportunities for, maintaining the facility financially. All of those things are stuff that staff are putting together.
Great.
I had a question going back to the first focus area number 1. So with the goal of providing recommendations for proposed park projects, is that specifically about Hunter's Brook and Marsh Hollow, or is that kind of open-ended at this point?
These ones will be specifically for those locations because those will be for development for 2026. So those will be the priorities.
And are we going to, not us necessarily, but is City Council going to have a budget in mind, like by the end of this year for those projects? Okay.
There is a budget already.
Okay, there is. Great.
Yep.
It's happening.
New parks. Yes, we'll get there. Awesome. Any other thoughts about the specific goals or any feedback?
Is there another focus area? Oh, then I do have, I was waiting. So, and we didn't talk about this last time when we reviewed because I didn't have an opportunity to compare, but I went back and I looked at our work plan from the previous year, and one thing that jumped out at me, and forgive me if it's in here, just not called out specifically, that I don't feel that we addressed last year, and I don't see it here, is that we had talked about reviewing water access opportunities and determining the meaning of water access and reviewing opportunities for providing access to residents. So that was the water access, the water amenities, water features is something that the community keeps coming up in all of our surveys. So I just really wanted to make sure that it's somewhere in here and we can fit it into this year's plan.
Yep, I would say that qualifies under goal number 3 for focus area number 2. I am more than happy to add that in to specifically call it out. This one is a review of the whole park system and trail system overall.
Okay.
And so I'm more than happy to add that in if the council or the committee requests that it gets added in.
I like it. We thought it was important last year, so we wanted to bring attention to it. And I think if we don't do it, I think it has a tendency to kind of get lost.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think the other thing too is, that came from the community.
Yeah.
And, if people take a look at the plan and they don't see anything in there that's
Spelled out.
even though it's in here, we should spell it out or at least make comment on there. So.
I can absolutely add it in. Would you agree that that is an appropriate place to add it in?
Yeah.
Goal 3.
Goal 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I will add that in.
Good job, Amanda.
It's just looking back, and you only have the chance to, once this is sent out, then to look back and compare, and it wasn't something that we thought of and I remembered in last month's meeting.
Absolutely.
All right.
So the final thing of this particular slide is just the proposed meeting schedule. And so Our next meeting is our April meeting, and so this one will be a little bit more of the informative, because this is when we get all of our new and returning committee members on board for another term. And so we will be selecting our chair and vice chair at this meeting. There will be an orientation presentation for all committee members, new and old. And then we will, that last one is tonight. So that's a typo. So we'll be doing the last point tonight. So we're gonna tackle that one right away. I will update that so that we know that we already did that one.
Just overachieved.
We are overachievers this year, you guys. I am so proud of you. And then our May 2025 meeting will be to provide recommendations for that park development survey. So that's something that I will be putting together to propose to this group. In June, we'll be reviewing the non-traditional park spaces, and we will talk a little bit more about what that means, because there will be a needed time to be able to kind of do this on your own. But I waited till June, so it'll be nice and beautiful outside for you to do that. And then we will, at the meeting, be discussing opportunities for enhancement of some of those non-traditional park spaces. So that, and then in July, review amenities and features of current parks and trail systems. In August, we'll be discussing a priority list of enhancements to underutilized or non-traditional park spaces. And then in September, we'll be reviewing the survey results and public input for new park developments. And the reason this one, it seems so far out, is because I wanted to be able to make sure that all of the engagement events were completed so that we could review it in their entirety.
So could you add, for the water access and amenities, is that going to be then
That's a part of the Parks and Trails.
August? Oh. So July.
Yes.
Okay.
And if it comes up in another one, that's totally fine too.
Okay.
Because water can be non-traditional as well.
Okay.
And then in October, we'll provide recommendations for new park development. So September, reviewing public input, and then we'll kind of formalize our thoughts in October to come together with some more narrowed down ideas from this committee. And then moving on into November, we'll be providing recommendations for revisions or additions to ordinances. In December, reviewing the trail gaps and providing any recommendations or updates. In January, already 2026, reviewing public feedback regarding the Victoria Recreation Center. February, considering our Parks and Recreation Committee work plan. In March, approving the committee work plan, and then reviewing our Emerald Ash Borer report for that year. And then April, starting all over again and doing the same thing as the last time, except I will update that approval process. Any questions, thoughts, concerns about this?
Okay. Well, great. Good job. Looks good to me. And we'll add that one item in there regarding the water feature. Does somebody want to make a motion to accept the work plan with that modification and recommend to the city council?
So moved.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And, okay, a motion's been made and seconded to accept the work plan with the modification we talked about adding water feature in goal 3, and then recommending to the city council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carried. Great. Next item is review of the Emerald Ash Borer management.
All right. So I met earlier this year with Rainbow Tree Care, which is our partnering organization that handles our treatment of emerald ash borer. But before we get started, I'm going to give just kind of an overview of what it is that we are doing and why this protection is necessary. And so ash borers are invasive wood-boring beetles that are responsible for the death and decline of tens of thousands, of millions of ash trees in North America. So it is an invasive species that actually comes from Asia, and so our trees are not set up to protect from it. Ash trees in Victoria are at risk of infestation as emerald ash borer larvae tunnel and cut off key nutrients to run through the tree. These often destroy the trees if they're left untreated, and you can, look up online and see just how much they tear apart these trees. But the reason that we want to take care of this is because ash trees provide so many different types of environmental and economic benefits. And so some of those are they absorb pollutants and they improve the air quality. They help control soil erosion. They have the prevention of stormwater runoff. They increase biodiversity, and they provide shade and cooling down areas around, especially those super mature trees. Early treatment of these ash borers decreases the spread of the species, enabling the trees to develop larger canopy sizes, which is the big bushiness, which increases overall benefits. And so some of the information that came back from the report from our partnering company is I did get some information in terms of the treatment cycle. So you'll see the ash protection results here in this chart. And just to give a little bit more context as to why the numbers might be skewed a little bit, private trees are treated in every other year cycles, and then public trees are treated in 3-year cycles. So I particularly had a question of why it was so low one year, but it was because it was in a cycle year where they didn't get treated. But if you can see that there have been a large number of trees that were treated, and if we think about this in its entirety, we've got an annual total each year kind of hovering a little bit around the same thing, with the exception of 2022 where it was an off-year cycle for protection. But these are the number of trees that were protected because of early prevention and treatment. Any thoughts or questions on this?
So I do have a question. So does Rainbow keep identifying, since this is mostly related to like public city trees, do they keep identifying new trees that meet their treatment requirements and like adding them, or have they already identified all trees that are going to be?
Yep. So the trees in Victoria, we do have information and data about what trees exist in Victoria, when they were treated, things like that. And so we do have a catalog of all that information. But then they do go back in a 3-year cycle. So they have that information. And so it's kind of a matter of like, did we have to cut a tree? Did we, things like that. So those would change the numbers. Did we plant a tree? And so those are things that they might be evolving just depending upon what kind of landscaping care was had, or did we not catch something in time and we lost a tree, things like that. So the numbers might vary a little bit based on that. But they do have a catalog of the types of trees. And if you really would like to get more information about the trees that are available, that information can be found online.
Okay.
And so moving on to the treatment benefits. And so these are some of like the fun facts that kind of came out from the treatment plan. And so DBH, which is diameter at breast height, which indicates the diameter of the tree at about 4.5 feet off of the ground. This is essentially like the width of the tree trunk. And so the wider these are able to grow, typically this results in a larger canopy size, and the larger canopy size is something that is going to create even more benefits for the area because they increase the shade, the flow of oxygen, biodiversity, things like that. And so the average tree DBH in Victoria is 15.5 inches, and so those are pretty well sized trees. And so that's something that we want to continue to support and encourage so that we can protect those and allow those trees to continue to grow to maturity. And so the amount of trees that canopy that was protected in Victoria is enough to cover approximately 4 football fields, which is kind of a fun fact of how much coverage was able to be protected. Last year, if you guys remember, it was a very rainy year. And so while rain can definitely help some of our plants, it also increases a lot of storm water runoff. And for any of you who are water enthusiasts, you know that that can cause some problems. And so with the increased rainfall that we saw last year, we were able to intercept 875,786 gallons of stormwater that prevented it from being run off into our lakes and ponds around here, which the trees absorbed. They were able to recycle, which eliminated some of the pollutants that our water would have seen had it not been for these trees. There was almost 400,000 pounds of CO2 that was avoided. And that is the equivalent of burning 20,000 gallons of gas. And so that's quite a bit of pollution that was prevented. And then treating the trees cuts down the cost of having to remove them from EAB, because that is what happens. It does kill off the trees if they're left untreated. And so all of these benefits had happened based on being able to early detect, treat them on a regular cycle, and ensure that the invasive species did not get to our trees.
So like in new park developments or on new boulevard tree plantings for all the new neighborhoods, like is there like an ordinance against planting ash trees?
No, because they're native species, so
Okay.
we want ash trees.
Yeah.
But those are, things that we're not dictating what types of trees and things like that can be planted, especially on private property. But that's something that this company is accessible to our residents, and there is a flyer that's going to be coming, or a postcard that's going to be coming out in the mail from them. To partner with them as well to get your trees treated in your yard. And so the city will catalog any ash trees that need to be treated. Ash trees, unfortunately, are not the only tree that has to deal with invasive species. There are other ones that exist. They're just not as pervasive right now as the ash borer. And so there are other trees that we might treat for other things. And so it's not necessarily just ash trees. It's just if there's an invasive species. But we are focusing on the ash trees because that's the main issue that we've been dealing with the past several years.
Yeah, I mean, we have one in our boulevard that's tagged by the city, so you know, I don't know if you guys have noticed that it has a little like metal tag at about that height that you mentioned. But yes, to your point, we would hate to lose that huge boulevard tree. So that's why I was curious if they're still planting them in boulevards.
Well, we're in a new development.
Yeah.
That's 7-8 years old, and I don't think there's a single ash tree in our boulevards in our development. So I think they're kind of steered away from that.
Okay.
And then I did just want to draw your attention to, in light of this conversation, there is a presentation by Rainbow Tree Care that will be presenting at a Donuts in Victoria, which is hosted at the Victoria Recreation Center. This particular one is the May 21st Donuts in Victoria. And so anyone who is interested in learning more and seeing how you could potentially do it on your own private property, I would encourage you to attend this session. And as always, Donuts in Victoria provides not only enrichment and education, but donuts and coffee at the rec center. So we encourage you to participate.
Okay. Any more questions on the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan? If not, other business. Does anybody have anything else?
No.
Do not.
I do have one question. I was just thinking about this the other day, and it came up when you were going through the work plan here about maintenance and keeping things, infrastructure up to date. There's been an ongoing trail repair each year. Is that continuing? There was there used to be like $50,000, I think, that the city allocated towards kind of repairing some of the trails where there's cracks and that sort of thing. Is that something
that's incorporated in our park maintenance budget, and so they do address those as they are, like, there's a priority list that they work through in addressing those needs. So the park maintenance team will be working on those once weather starts.
Okay, that's great. I just want to make sure because I know that if those don't get done, it ends up being a lot more costly. Okay, and dangerous.
Yes.
What's the best way, Jenna, to report, like we, in our development, we have the little willow trees that are coming up through the asphalt trails. And some of the asphalt has buckled and it's, you know, this high, you know, and it's, you know, it's dangerous if you're riding a bike or that kind of stuff around. So what is the best way to kind of report some of those things?
So if you go to victoriamn.gov, there is a report and issue tab. And it's a simple form that you can fill out online. It'll ask for contact information so we can update you with a status. But then you can describe the issue, describe the location and what needs to be done. And then staff will follow up with that report to let the person know when they'll be addressing the issue.
Is there a place to attach a photo or? Oh,
Yep, you can attach a description, you can attach a photo, and then you can let them know how you want to be contacted back.
okay, perfect, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? If not, a motion is in order to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jenna.